Hi, people. This one's maybe a little bit different. It's something I think really needs to be raised. Now, I come into this absolutely candid that this is purely my opinion, and I accept that I'm probably prejudiced on this one. I'm probably prejudiced about this. I probably need to have more um, of an objective stance. I probably need to see more of the line of work that I'm going to be critical of here. But what I have seen is the basis for this video. And what I want to talk about is life coaches. Life coaches. That is people who sort of take it on themselves to, well, as the name implies, coach other people through their lives. Now, from what I gather, and again, I could be wrong about this, but from what I gather, some of them have psychology degrees. They're licensed therapists, but the backgrounds tend to vary. Um, I would associate this a bit with motivational speakers. There's a bit of overlap there. That is people who sort of get up and encourage others. In of itself, this is a good thing, right? On the surface level. I think of course, it's good to encourage other people. That's better than tearing people down. But I think the issue I have with the idea of life coaching is it sounds very pretentious. It sounds very presumptive. Um, I've dealt with someone like this recently, not in a professional capacity. I certainly didn't hire this person, but she was a life coach, and you could tell. You could tell by her whole demeanor, the whole way she communicated. Um, the details are not that important, but basically, it was very presumptive, very much along the tone of, you should do this. My advice is this. Um, and not in my experience, not, well, I found that challenging. It's like, you should do this. So it's actually quite condescending. Um, Now, I think that there are no doubt people who are self-style life coaches, or maybe they even have some sort of certificate as such. And they're in it with genuinely good reasons. Maybe they have had some particular experience in life that's challenging or colorful, and they want to help others. So that's good. That's all good. I'm really not criticizing the premise of that. The problem I have with a lot of life coaches is they seem to lack humility. I mean, if you're going to get up and tell people how to lead their lives, and they say that they're not doing this, but I think they really are, um, you need to really be able to show some humility. You need to be able to say, well, I'm not perfect, because nobody is. And I have a problem with anyone who assumes this mantle of perfection. Um, Now, a life coach may have a psychology degree. They may be a very good orator. They may be very savvy with business. They may be a best-selling author. They may have been on TED Talks, you know. So clearly they are intelligent enough to be successful in that sense. And, it is what it is. They're successful. But nobody on this earth is perfect. Nobody. So to me, the whole idea of life coaching is coming from this assumption of perfection. To me, it's a very superior way of looking at things. Maybe it's just that the term is problematic. Maybe it's better to say, I don't know, life companion, or life, not companion, but maybe something that's a little less condescending. The idea of coaching someone else's life. Now, there may be people out there who have had a total nervous breakdown. They're totally in a mess. Their life is going nowhere. Maybe they really, really are seeking help. But even then, I think that, I come from a teaching background. And the first thing I do um, whenever I'm teaching my students a new concept or a new sentence, I always give examples. Because if I'm just telling them what to do, it won't make any sense unless I give empirical examples that they can actually work with. And I do that to try and make it simpler for them to understand. And usually that works. Not always, sometimes I have to go over it again or use a better example, but the premise is don't just tell people what to do, give them an example. I'm not saying it's exactly the same thing, but you see, if a life coach is telling someone, I don't know, it could be, you have no confidence, get confidence. Um, I think they're quite savvy about it because it wouldn't be unpleasant. They're not going to just insult people. But again, it's coming from this point of, I know best, I'm superior, I have lots of confidence. Now, to me, something that would resonate a lot more would be I used to also struggle with this issue, so I totally understand. I totally understand. I also had confidence issues. You see, to me, that would show empathy. It would show that they really understand their target audience. They're not just looking down from on high. I know best, follow my advice. So if you're a life coach, you might be feeling rather offended by this and you might think, oh, this guy's got it totally wrong. Well, convince me otherwise. Convince me otherwise and tell me what your shortcomings are. Because this is something that, from what I can see, very few life coaches actually do. They assume to tell everyone else how to lead their lives, but they don't acknowledge their own shortcomings. And of course, I have shortcomings because everybody does. Even experts are still learning. I mean, I'm not one of these people that sort of says, I know better than experts. I'm not saying that. They will no doubt best me when it comes to, psychology or the study of the human brain. But I insist that nobody is perfect. And I think that communication, if you are not, if you're not getting people to resonate with what you're saying, if people think it's condescending, um, it won't work. Now, I accept that there are people who will go to life coaches, and maybe that life coach is getting lots of clients. So I suppose that would sort of counter my argument. They would say, well, I must be doing something right because I'm getting all these clients. Well, this might sound cynical, but maybe they're vulnerable people who are desperate for some sort of answers. Um, and perhaps the rates are reasonable and they're going to this life coach because they think it will improve their life. What I'm more interested in is what is the actual outcome? Is it actually improving lives or is it like this artificial facade? Now, maybe I'm too cynical. Maybe, they really are positively changing lives. I just think that if you're going to deliver a message, you need to show empathy. You need to provide examples. You need to provide examples of lived experience. Because after all, how can you assume to tell someone what to do if you haven't been through it yourself? And if you have been through it yourself, then yeah, cite that. Talk about it. Talk about the frustration you felt, the anger, the hurt, whatever it was. To me, a person like that is far more inspiring than someone who just thinks that they're better than everyone else. And it isn't just life coaches. You get this with some so-called motivational speakers when they just seem to look down from on high. I make these videos and I hope that people can connect with them. I hope that people can resonate with them. But I never ever call myself an expert. I never say I know best. I'm very careful about that because I don't. I know what my shortcomings are. I can have a quick temper. I'm sometimes not as organized as I should be. I overthink. Those are all things that I need to work on. And I'm sure there's other things as well. So I think it is very, very important that people recognize their own flaws and try to develop them. And I mean, I recently came across a 32-year-old life coach. I'm 37, and I'm thinking, you're 5 years younger than me. Um, maybe you've had more experiences in a particular area, but how can you, at 32 years old, assume to think that you know best, that you could just tell everyone else, including many people who are older, what they should do in their lives? And maybe some of it's good advice. You know, any reasonably intelligent person can come up with decent advice. I don't think you need to be a life coach to do that. I think any reasonably intelligent person can give others advice. But the thing about advice is, there's a difference between giving advice with good intentions and just assuming to give advice when someone hasn't even asked for it. because the latter can frankly seem rather condescending. I don't like when people come to me and say, my advice is this, and I'm thinking, well, I haven't asked for your advice. Thank you, but I haven't asked for it. Advice is something that it can have its place, it can be helpful, but it can also read as condescending if the person hasn't asked for it. Anyway, that's my take. Now, I can see that I may be wrong about some of this, but that is my perception of this idea of life coaching. Hell, I may totally change my opinion. I freely admit that I maybe need to see more of this, but if you're a life coach, convince me. Convince me that I'm wrong. Convince me that life coaches have humility and they also recognize the shortcomings because that's something I've not really seen so far from what I have seen of life coaches. So convince me that you're different. Convince me that you have humility, that you know that you're not perfect. And then maybe I'll think, okay, I'm wrong about this. Maybe they are just decent people who are trying to help others. But as it stands, I must admit I'm a little cynical for the reasons I've stated. Thanks for watching.